We've got the latest on the SEC coaching carousel on this Friday ahead of the final week of the SEC regular season.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to Everydayers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, the number one sports podcast network out there. And, of course, we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Also on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network, covering your team every day. All right, let's dive into it. The latest, the very latest on the SEC coaching carousel. Let's start with the news that came out on Thanksgiving morning. If you missed it, Eli Drinkwitz reaching an agreement, 6-year contract extension to stay at Mizzou. This is on the heels of Drink's name getting floated out there, possible interest at LSU and Florida, among others. So this locks him up. The Mizzou Board of Curators met on Wednesday afternoon. School unanimously approved the contract, which will pay Drinkwitz an average of $10.75 million a year. Their athletic director saying that Drink has transformed the standard of the football program. Drinkwitz says he hopes to keep elevating it, saying, "My family and I deeply believe in the vision and leadership from our administration. I'm committed to continuing our work to build Mizzou into a championship program." And look, Eli Drinkwitz done a great job at Mizzou. Had back-to-back 10-win seasons in 23 and 24. Obviously, this season they had hopes for a playoff push. The Bo Prabula injury kind of derailed that. The offense kind of bogged down when they had to turn to the true freshman Matt Zollers. The big thing that sucks is Sam Horn getting hurt in that opener kind of took them, he was a good backup option to have. And so Zollers, freshman, thrust into it. He was supposed to be your third-string quarterback this year. And so the season kind of derailed for Mizzou, but still played hard. I mean, their defense has played really hard this season. Ahmad Hardy leads the SEC in rushing, so there's been a lot of good for Mizzou. The question is, can Drink get Mizzou to a 10-2 type season or better moving forward and get into that 12-team playoff? That's going to be the hope and the standard of what Mizzou is going to hope for now. You're getting paid. Eli Drinkwitz is a top 10 highest paid head coach in the country. He's going to have to live up to those expectations and earn it. So that is the news out of Mizzou. So take Eli Drinkwitz's name off the board. The other big name that we can take off the board is Clark Lea at Vanderbilt. News coming out Friday morning that Vanderbilt announced they have signed Clark Lea to a contract extension. The report from The Athletic states it is a 6-year deal, and said that Lea recently interviewed with Florida for their open head coaching position. His name was also getting mentioned in the Penn State opening. Lea, of course, is a Vanderbilt alum in his 5th season with the program, and they have had a historic rise between last year to this year. And according to USA Today, it is estimated Clark Lea was paid around $3.7 million this season. That's a figure that would rank last among SEC coaches. Jeff Lebby was making $4.3 million this year at Mississippi State. Every other coach in the league makes more than $6.7 million a year. So Clark Lea obviously was due a big pay raise. Pete Thamel reporting Friday morning that Lea will get that significant salary increase in addition to other financial commitments for his assistant coaching staff, Vanderbilt facilities. Clark Lea saying in a statement, "I'm excited to be able to continue the work we started at Vanderbilt 5 years ago. Throughout this process, I've been overwhelmed with a sense of pride in the culture and a sense of clarity that the work is not done." So, look, he continues to say, Vanderbilt, he does not want to just say, "Hey, we're happy to be here. Hey, we're happy to be relevant and in the conversation." He has been saying for years, he wants Vanderbilt to be a championship program. And I think we all laughed when he said that at SEC Media Days a few years ago. But it does kind of, you start to kind of turn your head now and go, oh, he's serious. This is real. And you start to consider, if they can get a win tomorrow against Tennessee, finish the season 10-2, Diego Pavia, I think, absolutely in the Heisman conversation. I think he absolutely deserves an invite to New York being one of the best players in college football this year. You can make a case nobody has elevated his team as much as Pavia has. But sitting at 9-2, a pivotal game in Knoxville on Saturday. Of course, Clark Lea was named SEC Coach of the Year last season when Vanderbilt stunned then #1 Alabama for their first ever win over an AP Top 5 team. And this season alone, Vandy has beaten 3 AP Top 15 teams. That is a school record. And they are into the AP Top 10 for the first time since 1947. Their athletic director is saying Clark Lea's success is demonstrating what we believe is possible for Vanderbilt football and the entire university. Clark Lea now the second SEC head coach to land an extension from his respective school. So take Clark Lea and take Eli Drinkwitz off the board if you had him, on the board for some of these openings out there. And we'll get to our predictions in a minute. We'll talk the latest on Lane Kiffin, but when we start to look around the league, like this is where the game of dominoes start to happen, right? Like take this guy off the board, take that guy off the board, and suddenly you start to look around and go, okay, like who's left here? So of the SEC jobs, we got LSU still looking for a head coach. We got Florida looking for a head coach. We got Auburn. We got Arkansas. Of course, if Lane Kiffin goes to either Florida or LSU, that opens Ole Miss, and suddenly Ole Miss is open. And so it's just this domino effect. And so you have these 4 big openings, and now you've taken, guys who are at good other SEC schools doing a good job there that maybe could have gotten an upgrade in their job. They're staying put. So Eli Drinkwitz at Mizzou and Clark Lea at Vanderbilt, both off the board. The next big domino is Lane Kiffin and where he's going to go. And coming up next, we're going to talk about Lane Kiffin and the latest on him. He just spoke with Marty Smith on SEC Network. We'll give you some highlights of that ahead of the Egg Bowl about to get popping here on this Friday afternoon. More Locked On SEC here in just a sec. Hey, first, guys, it is Black Friday and the holidays. They always feel a little bit easier when you already know the perfect gift, and Omaha Steaks makes it almost too simple. Whether you're treating yourself this season or you're sending something memorable to family and friends, Omaha Steaks delivers handcrafted perfection right to your door. And this week is the best time to jump in because their cyber sale is here, and the deals are huge. I mentioned this before. I've gotten Omaha Steaks as a gift before. And look, you get excited when you see it. I start counting down the days and going, all right, what day do we want to fire up the grill and get these on? And of course, the variety's underrated. It's not just the steaks. They got burgers, comfort meals, sides, desserts. It is one of those gifts that truly fits anybody. If you're trying to figure out, what do I get for my boss? Or what do I get for this person? Perfect gift for the holiday season. And look, you could save big on unforgettable gifts with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites during their cyber sale. And get an additional $35 off. Use our promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com. Promo code COLLEGE. Terms apply. See their site for details. All right, continue on here on Locked On SEC. It is a Black Friday edition as we get you guys ready. We got games about to get underway. So whatever time you're listening to this, we are we're getting you ready for the games here. And just moments ago, Lane Kiffin speaking on the field there in Starkville ahead of this game against Mississippi State. And kind of interesting, Marty Smith asked him about the game first. And Marty Smith, he told Marty Smith that basically they asked Mississippi State for security in their locker room because I guess they were afraid that somebody was maybe going to try to break in or whatever. And apparently to Kiffin's, he said somebody did try to break into the locker room. And so they put extra added security or put cameras up. And still, he said a Mississippi State fan broke into the locker room around 3 a.m. and stole Trinidad Chambliss's jersey. So again, it's it's the Egg Bowl. It's a rivalry that gets people even more fired up. So today he was asked about the game or his future, and Lane Kiffin kind of sidestepped it and said, today is about this game. 11 wins will be the first time ever in the regular season. He said this noise thing has been going on for weeks, nothing new for us. Marty Smith, again, tried to prod. He said, is there a timeline here for your decision? And Kiffin just said he's looking forward to kickoff in the Egg Bowl and then looking forward to Knox Kiffin's high school football playoff game. So that is the most that we got out of Lane Kiffin, and we're going to see what happens here. I will add this. Our buddy Matt Moscona over at Locked On LSU, he dropped the show last night where he said, folks, he was talking to at Ole Miss. Keep in mind this, last week, all the momentum has been building towards Lane Kiffin to LSU. According to this source, that Moscona's source at Ole Miss that told him, he said that what he had been hearing is Lane Kiffin might be getting a little bit of cold feet. And basically, I think the numbers Moscona said was, as of a few days ago, Kiffin LSU was about 90-10. And I think he said something, it was like 55-45 or 60-40, something like that now. So he still isn't a lean towards LSU, but this thing has changed a little bit, that Kiffin may be looking at this and saying, all this noise, all this stuff happening, if we're literally about to take Ole Miss to the playoff and I'm going to leave this, we're going to leave, they're not going to let me coach here. What if we, again, still outside chance they get to the SEC championship game. So it would just be very baffling for him to leave that, but that's the timeline of where this happens, right? LSU's going, hey, look, we got to get started on a signing class and the transfer portal and all this if you're coming. But even LSU said, we're willing to wait. We'll wait for Lane if he wants to go coach in the playoff. It's Ole Miss that's kind of saying, you know what? We can't allow that. Like, if you're going to one of our rivals that we now know you're leaving, we can't let you stay here and coach this team. And basically it's an infomercial for your next stop. And so it is going to be very interesting to see. Now, Moscona did point this out, though. If you're an LSU fan and you're rooting for Lane Kiffin to come to LSU, wouldn't hurt to lose to Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl here. So, it's an outside chance of happening. Ole Miss is a heavy favorite, but if Jeff Lebby and can rally the troops and Blake Shapen plays outstanding and Devon Booth and Brennan Thompson and all these different pieces, maybe Mississippi State can get into a shootout with Ole Miss. Maybe that's possible. Defense forces some turnovers. We saw this defense step up and play huge in that Arizona State game earlier this year in Starkville for their marquee win of the year. Can they do it one more time? It's going to take a monumental effort to do it. And then the other side is, how focused are the Ole Miss players? We've seen on social media them saying, oh, we're focused. It's no big deal. There's no distractions. We're 110% locked in, all this kind of stuff. But it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to go do it. So we're going to find out here in just the next couple hours as this game plays out, depending on when you guys are watching this, on how Ole Miss performs. I expect Ole Miss is going to win and win big. That's kind of what I'm thinking. I think this is a rally the troops, rally around the rebels, and let's go win this thing. And so regardless of what happens, it's going to be very awkward. If Lane's up there celebrating an 11th win, best regular season in Ole Miss history, one of the best seasons, and preparing for a playoff game, and whether or not he's going to be a part of it or not is just going to be very, very strange. And so let's get to this. We kind of threw out there, I was talking with our Locked On SEC group this morning, and I was saying, all right, let's just make some predictions. Where do we think, who do we think is going to be the head coaches here moving forward? And as some of our guys have voted, they said still think Lane Kiffin goes to LSU. And these are my predictions, the rest of these. I said, for Florida, look, our guy Graham Hall told us earlier this week, he thinks Jeff Brom is very high on their list. And think of the guys that are, some of the guys whose names are getting thrown out there. We've seen Drink lock up at Mizzou. We've seen, Clark Lea lock up at Vanderbilt. Jeff Brom's the one that, he's an alum at Louisville and all this, but, we haven't seen the whole, lock in an extension and all this yet out of him. So at Louisville. So that's a name to maybe keep an eye on there. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Of course, we know Arkansas has an offer on the table for Alex Golesh. I did see one of our Locked On guys said, maybe if Auburn misses out on John Summerall, do they pivot to like an Alex Golesh or something? I told you guys the other day, I'm high on Alex Golesh. I think he's going to be very successful as a head coach wherever he ends up. If it's in the SEC, I think that would be a big hit for Arkansas. Granted, they got to hit it on the head on the defensive coordinator hire. But as far as offensive minds go, I like Alex Golesh. Josh Heupel, disciple. I think he's going to be really good no matter where he goes. Right now, we're going to pin John Summerall Auburn, but obviously he's got a lot of attention and getting a lot of love elsewhere. Look, here's the thing. What if Lane Kiffin stays at Ole Miss? According to the reports, LSU's number 2 was Eli Drinkwitz. He's now off the table. A lot of rumblings out there that their number 3 would be Summerall. So if LSU misses out on Kiffin, I think they've got to pivot very quickly and go to John Summerall at Tulane and go, hey, we want you here. And again, you maybe start to get into a bidding war with Auburn or, Florida. Let's say Kiffin leaves for Florida. Then Ole Miss is in the picture. They're trying to get John Summerall. So this whole thing is very, the domino effects on whatever decision Lane Kiffin makes here will be very interesting. And then we just kind of threw out there, one of our guys said, what if Ryan Silverfield took the Ole Miss job? Again, that's kind of out of left field, but we know Silverfield's had great success there at Memphis. His name was, ballyhooed for possibly as an Arkansas job candidate. So anyway, that's just kind of making some predictions on this Friday. Anything can happen here, and a lot of stuff can change in the next 48 to 72 hours. And then some names to kind of keep an eye on there at the bottom. Brent Key at Georgia Tech. Kane Womack, obviously at Alabama. His name has been turned around for the Arkansas job. If Alex Golesh, decides to do something else or Arkansas decides to pivot, they could go with Kane Womack. Jed Fish, his name keeps getting floated out for the Florida gig. I think obviously because, his Florida ties, but, is there any other reason why Jed Fish would be the top of Florida's list? I don't know. And then Kenny Dillingham, well, I just like a lot. I mean, a young guy at Arizona State brings a ton of energy, and I think would be a hit for either an LSU, an Auburn, any of these squads that wanted to get involved and pull Kenny Dillingham. But as you guys can see, like the names start to get a little bit limited here when we see that, everybody starts to get locked in. Obviously, I think the first domino that started mid-season was Kurt Cignetti getting locked in at Indiana. Then we saw Rhett Lashley get locked in at SMU. Like the dominoes just kept falling of a lot of coaches that might be up for some of these openings and be willing to move on or move elsewhere, that their names are off the board. And again, like we said, 2 of the big names in the SEC, Drinkwitz and Clark Lea, off the board. And so it is all eyes on Starkville, Mississippi today, guys, to see what happens with Lane Kiffin. Again, we're not going to get a decision out of him, but what happens on the field very well could. Like we said, if Mississippi State pulls off the upset, I think this makes this thing very easy for Lane Kiffin to just go, you know what? See you later, guys. We tried. It was a great year. I'm off to LSU. Sayonara. And Ole Miss likely gets left out of the playoff at that point. At 10-2, granted, you would say that they've got a good resume. Why would they not get in? Again, we've heard from, On3 has put out there that if Lane Kiffin were to leave Ole Miss, they're going to hold that against him. It's the same thing when Florida State was undefeated a couple years ago and lost their quarterback, Jordan Travis, to injury. They dinged them for that. They said, you're not the same team without your star quarterback. They look at Ole Miss and say, you're not the same team. I think they floated out there that, talking with some folks in Vegas, that the Vegas odds, they would ding Ole Miss, basically knock them down 3 or 4 points as far as a favorite in a game with the loss of Lane Kiffin. So that's pretty crazy to say that Lane Kiffin coaching your team is worth an extra 3 to 4 points, no matter what your personnel is or who your coordinators are. So that speaks pretty highly of him and what a good coach he is. But anyway, like we said, the Marty Smith interview pregame, we did not really get any timeline on what's going to happen here with Kiffin, but Ole Miss AD Keith Carter did say a couple days ago that Saturday they will make an announcement about Lane Kiffin's future. I just find it hard at this point. Again, if he's having the cold feet and he wants to stay, okay, but there are some bridges that have been burned there in Oxford. He's going to have to earn back some of that trust from some of those folks at Ole Miss, to say, hey, look, sorry, guys, I was just saying I didn't want to make a decision until the end of the season. When everybody knows he's had that extension sitting on his desk for weeks, and all these other coaches have locked themselves in before the season ended, it's kind of hard for you to sell the idea of, oh, well, I was hurting for the season end. Well, nobody else was waiting for the season end to make a decision where they were going. So anyway, that will be that is the big domino to fall. We're going to wait to see what happens with Lane Kiffin. All right, when we come back, we'll get to a few more tidbits here on Locked On SEC, a Friday edition here. All right, first, guys, I want to remind you with the games all happening this weekend, our friends at FanDuel, they have got plenty of stuff going on up there. Of course, FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the NBA, and they've got all the college action up there as well. We've been telling you all week about some of the lines, those betting lines, if you want to get some last-minute bets in on these games happening today. Again, a big one tonight with the Lone Star Showdown, Texas A&M at Texas. If you like A&M to cover the 2.5, or if you like Texas straight up to pull off the upset, you can get the Longhorns plus 2.5 or on the money line to pull off the upset. And then all the games happening Saturday. Some close lines there. South Carolina is actually a 2.5-point home favorite against Clemson. Kentucky's a 2.5-point road underdog at Louisville. They're looking for their 6th win of the season, trying to get to bowl eligibility. Tennessee, a 2.5-point home favorite against Vandy. And Mizzou, a 2.5-point road favorite at Arkansas. All those games up there for you at FanDuel. And, of course, FanDuel got all the pro action as well. Keeps games more exciting. And right now, FanDuel giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Just head to FanDuel.com, sign up, and play your game with FanDuel. They are the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, guys, final segment here on a Friday here on Locked On SEC. And we've been talking about the coaching carousel and whatnot. The big news, again, if you missed it from today, Clark Lea locking in long-term at Vanderbilt, signing a 6-year extension. And one of the big things that Rivals put out there, Steve Wiltfong, logging an expert prediction this morning that Vanderbilt is going to flip Georgia 5-star quarterback commit Jared Curtis. This has been rumored for a couple of weeks that Vandy, they hosted him on a visit. They've been coming after him hard. To me, I've said this for a couple of weeks now, nothing against Clark Lea, but when his name starts getting mentioned for other jobs, I'm going, look, he's done a fantastic job at Vanderbilt. But what does life post Diego Pavia look like at Vanderbilt? I think Pavia is as much of a reason for their success as is Clark Lea's coaching and obviously bringing over Jerry Kill and all these different pieces that they have at Vanderbilt. But what is life after Diego Pavia, right? Like when you lose him, do you go back to being 6-6, 5-7 Vanderbilt? Jared Curtis certainly changes this thing around because he is an elite 5-star quarterback. I mean, this would be one of the biggest gets ever for Vanderbilt football historically if they're able to get him. And like we said, Rivals Steve Wiltfong prediction 60% confidence level. He believes that Vandy will flip Jared Curtis from Georgia. I've seen some Georgia fans commenting on the social media post saying, yeah, bleep this recruiting. I'm over it. So this is the new world we live in. And if Vandy has gotten the money to write the check to get Jared Curtis to flip, that would be that would certainly be something. So anyway, as we wrap up here, let me jump into kind of giving you our picks for the weekend. Like I said, I think we're going to stick with our prediction for Ole Miss to win the Egg Bowl. I like Georgia to beat Georgia Tech. Is it close? Probably is. I think that one's close coming down to the fourth quarter. Georgia probably pulls away late, and it's just kind of what Georgia's done this year, right? Like, I know they've played a little bit more dominant football as of late, but they just find themselves in close games against good teams this year, I think, and even not good teams. I mean, the Florida game came down to the wire. I think Georgia pulls it out late and beats Georgia Tech. And then tonight, look, I hate to doubt A&M because Mike Elko's been so good all year. And, we had David Nuno on the show a few weeks ago and asked him, is this a team of destiny? And, we had some people joking on our comments about it. And then they go and they fall behind 30-3 at halftime against South Carolina. And we're getting people commenting on our videos going, yeah, that's funny, team of destiny. And then they come back and win it. And they're undefeated and they're 11-0 and they're looking for a perfect season. Like, to me, it's hard to keep doubting them. But I look at Darrell K. Royal Stadium, where Texas has won 19 of their last 20 games. They were the preseason number one team. They haven't lived up to those expectations. But to me, for Sark and Arch, Arch has been playing great football as of late. His best football of the season these last couple weeks. To me, I got to think that Texas is going to find a way to get this done. I could be wrong. Look, if the Aggies go in there and in a hostile road environment with tons of Longhorn fans, and they pull out a road win at Texas, one, it'll be hands down their best win of the season to go with the road win at Notre Dame. And all this talk people have made about, oh, they've been up on the lower half of the SEC. Okay, fine. But now you get a team in the upper half of the SEC. And okay, Texas may not be Ole Miss or whoever, but they're still considered in the upper half of the SEC teams, a very talented team. And if A&M goes in there and finds a way to win, I'm going to give them a ton of credit. And they'd be going to Atlanta for the first time in school history. So, but if I had to put money on it, I'm sticking with the Longhorns. I just think that they pull it off at home. Saturday games, look, I'll be rooting hard for Kentucky over Louisville. I think, Cutter Boley's had such a nice season. Mark Stoops, come on, you got to finish strong here. It's been a disappointing season, to say the least, but the last couple of weeks, Kentucky has played much better, albeit the Vanderbilt game aside. Louisville's had tons of injuries and stuff. I'm going to go with Kentucky pulls it off against Louisville, gets their 6th win of the season. South Carolina against Clemson. I mean, South Carolina's not been great, but Clemson hasn't either, and it's in Columbia. Can Lenore Sellers do enough? This could be Lenore Sellers' last game in a South Carolina uniform. I might go with the home team here. Hopefully South Carolina's offense can do enough. Defense just needs to get a couple stops on Klubnik and company. I'll stick with the home team in South Carolina. If this were at Clemson, I'd be taking Clemson, but I'll stick with South Carolina, and they get to their 5th win. And by the way, Shane Beamer already coming back next year, their athletic director, given the vote of confidence. LSU at Oklahoma. Michael Van Buren expected to start for LSU. No offense. They could barely beat Western Kentucky a week ago. Oklahoma's offense leaves a lot to be desired as well. I think I heard Dari Noka say, the over-under on this is like 36 or something. Take the under. LSU and Oklahoma, this is going to be a dogfight. 2 really good defenses, not great offenses. But I think Oklahoma at home in Norman with what's on the line at 9-2, a playoff berth on the line. I think Oklahoma gets it done. I don't see LSU scoring a touchdown. I mean, that's how bad this is. Maybe they get a couple field goals. They might get shut out. So take the under in that one. Vandy at Tennessee. Again, I've said this before, no offense to all fans. I think the Vandy story would be excellent if we could cap it off with a Diego Pavia win. Vandy gets to 10-2. He's going to the Heisman ceremony. But if you're a Tennessee fan, you'd love nothing more than to play spoiler on Vandy season. Send little brother back to where they belong. Hey, we're Tennessee. We had a down year. We still beat your ass. That's what Tennessee fans are going to want to say. Mizzou at Arkansas, like we said, it's been a tough couple of weeks for them there at 7-4. But Arkansas, it's been a brutal season all the way around for them. Bobby Petrino, he's coached some close games. Arkansas has got a ton of one-score lost games. I think that's how this one plays out. I think Mizzou pulls out a close one, probably an ugly, like 23-21 type game. Arkansas plays tough, but I think Mizzou wins it. Florida State at Florida, this one is going to be just absolutely atrocious. But Mike Norvell getting the vote of confidence. He's back next year as FSU's coach. They're looking for their 6th win to get the bowl eligibility. Florida's just trying to get the season over and get their next head coach in there. DJ Lagway was not very good the last game out. I'll go Florida State getting the win in the swamp. And then lastly, the Iron Bowl. It is Alabama at Auburn. Auburn looking for their 6th win, trying to get to bowl eligibility. DJ Durkin trying to prove that he is the guy and, remove the interim tag. I want to be the full-time head coach. And Kalen DeBoer, playoffs on the line. Trip to Atlanta on the line. If Alabama can find a way to win this game, it is everything for Alabama and Tuscaloosa. As much as I think it would be funny to see Auburn pull off the upset and absolutely, I mean, we're talking Kalen DeBoer absolutely on the hot seat and does he get fired, that sort of thing. I think, though, too much on the line for Alabama. I think the Tide roll in Auburn. Probably a close game. Maybe they win by 7 or something like that. But I think Alabama wins it. Probably close at the half. And I think Alabama pulls away there late. And that is our predictions for this weekend. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. And we'll be back if any news breaks over the weekend about the Lane Kiffin saga and much more. Keep it locked right here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day.